Welcome to the Limerick's Life podcast with your hosts, Sharon Slater
and Peter.
Hi all, and welcome to our Limerick History podcast. We're based in Limerick, Ireland, and most of our stories are going to be about that. I'm Sharon Slater, and I know about history.
And I'm Peter, and I know nothing about history. So what are you going to tell me about today?
So today we're going to unwrap the tale of John Goggin. He was a confectioner from Limerick, obviously, because that's where our stories are going to come from. And he was a real-life Willy Wonka, or at least he thought so. So this story I'm going to talk about has everything. It's got romance, it's got tragedy, and it even has a monkey.
Even a monkey. What a great start. What a good first podcast to do.
You gotta have a monkey. If it doesn't have a monkey, then where are you at? The story starts in 1823 when John Goggin married Catherine McNamara. Now, already we're getting into some interesting stuff because John was a Protestant and Catherine was a Catholic. And Catherine was 10 years older than him.
Oh, so he's a gold digger is what you're saying.
Or she was a sugar mammy.
Either. Could be both.
Yeah, either way, it worked out well for them because they ended up staying married.
You mentioned they different religions. How common or uncommon was that at the time for a married couple to both have different origins?
Well, it was not hugely common. There was a lot less Protestants, people who were members of the established church, the Church of Ireland, in Ireland compared to Catholics. But also there was some weird legalities that came if you were a Protestant married to a Catholic. So if John decided, 2 or 3 years into marrying Catherine that he didn't fancy her anymore and he wanted to take up with another Protestant lady, legally he could just leave her and marry the other woman. Because according to the law at the time, a marriage between a Protestant and a Catholic wasn't legal.
So he definitely got the better end of the deal, so is what you're saying.
Yeah, he absolutely got the better end of the deal. So that went on for, until the 1870s, this loophole was in place. And there was many people in Limerick and across Ireland who took full advantage of this, had entire families, and then decided to leave their Catholic spouse for a Protestant one, with no legal repercussions whatsoever.
How would the differences in conflict between the two religions affect their children and, say, their baptisms?
So the couple, John, he stayed a Protestant, and Catherine, she stayed Catholic, even after their marriage. Sometimes people changed religion when they got married, but the two of them didn't. They went on to baptize their 9 children in either one or sometimes both churches.
9 children? That is a lot of children. That's too many children in my eyes.
Sadly, these 9 children didn't all make it to adulthood. A good few of them died in infancy, which led to the family having 2 sons named John and 3 daughters named Catherine.
So 3 out of the 4 daughters?
They had 3 different daughters and all 3 of those were called Catherine.
Oh, so all the daughters were called Catherine?
They had other daughters as well.
Oh.
It's just that 3 of them.
Yeah, they didn't.
One after another. They didn't have, much range of ideas for children's names. I think if 2 Catherines were already gone, by the time the 3rd came around, I might call them Mary.
Yeah. So I imagine the infant mortality rate back then was not the best.
Oh, absolutely not. Although there was some healthcare in Limerick, there was a few hospitals. There was a county hospital. St. John's was back then the fever hospital that was set up by a woman, just on the side. But the hospitals were pretty much all fee paying, and you went there if you really, really needed care.
Yeah.
There was some what they call lying-in hospitals, which was where women went to have a baby. But you only went to a lying-in hospital if you were in some sort of peril with your birth.
I see.
So yeah, unfortunately, it was a lot of high infant mortality.
Well, that's sad. So let's move on to something a bit better. Let's talk about the sweets. Where were John and Catherine's confectionery based?
So Catherine had it first. She was already a business owner, and she had a shop on Georgia Street, which is now O'Connell Street in the main stretch of the city. It's, if you know Limerick today, it's where Lana is. So
Oh yeah.
the shop, it was noted a few times in the city's trade directory. So every few years, this publishing company would come around, or a few different publishing companies. There was Guy's and there was Slater's, no relation of mine, and Bassett's, and they would create these trade directories. People would pay to have their names inserted into it. They would have either a line or an advert inside it. But Goggins had their confectionery shop advertised in these trade directories from 1824 until 1856. So it was doing quite well.
So Catherine is the one that kept running the shop?
Well, no. As we said, Catherine ended up having a rake of children, one after another. So John ended up taking over the general running of the shop after Catherine started having the children. The family, incidentally, they had the shop there, but they also lived above it. So there was the sound of pitter-patter of these feet running around, and people...
Nine kids running around above the sweet shop.
Exactly.
So at that time in the confectionery, what goods were they selling? Because I'm imagining boiled sweets, licorice laces, maybe even Turkish Delight.
Well, they definitely weren't selling Cadbury's cream eggs at Easter anyway. No, we know exactly what they were selling, because in 1823 there was a newspaper article that noted their confectionery, and it said that they were selling foreign fruits such as lemons and oranges and figs and almonds and walnuts, as well as wines and liqueurs and pickles. So they had pickled onions, gherkins, they had anchovies and catsup.
Quite the range, but what's catsup?
So catsup is it's a precursor to ketchup.
Oh, okay.
It was generally thinner in consistency, and while we know ketchup today as tomato-based, back in the 1820s and onwards, it included ingredients such as mushrooms or anchovies or walnuts. So imagine having that on your chips.
That I actually kind of like the idea of that. That sounds good.
I don't think I want anchovy sauce on my chips.
It could be good though.
Salt, vinegar,
Fish and
a
chip.
side of walnuts. No.
So this was 1820s?
That was the advertisement in 1823. There was other advertisements later, and they would have continued to have the same sort of products their entire career inside in the shop, because Limerick was a port, so there were ships coming in from all over the world bringing stocks and supplies, and they would have put in orders for these wild range of foods. So in Limerick, if somebody saw an orange, they would have been just overwhelmed. That's why even up until the 1950s, people would be getting oranges in their stockings at Christmas, because they were such a rare treat.
So wasn't pineapples like that as well at some point?
That was earlier in the Georgian period.
Yeah.
And you can still see how just crazed they were for pineapples. If you walk around the city and you see the railings on the ends and the corners of some railings, you'll see pineapples.
What a weird time. So they were active from the 1820s to the 1860s. So how would the famine have affected business for them?
Yeah, so the famine was in the 1840s, so smack bang in the middle of their time having a sweet shop. And the thing was, there was an influx of people from all around the County Limerick, but County Clare, County Tipperary, seeking refuge in the city. And you can imagine these poor, starved people walking along O'Connell Street and looking in the windows of Goggin's shop, seeing, the oranges, the lemons, these sweets, multicolours. And the anchovies. But, of course, they would often try and take the risk of running in and
just grabbing something and bolting.
Taking a handful of pick and mix getting out the door.
So they had security.
Yeah, John had to hire security to stand outside the shop and protect it from people coming in and out.
So usually when I think of security, I think, banks and stuff like that. Not not a sweet shop.
Yeah,
And no loitering near the lollipops.
it was very important to stay away from the sweeties. But you can imagine the desperation that was coming out of these people. But it wasn't, it wasn't a good time for the Goggins either. The famine hit close to home. Well, at least the famine period. In 1848, their youngest daughter, the third of their children, called Catherine, the last of the Catherines, died aged 11. So, they've seen all three of their Catherines pass away.
Yeah.
A few weeks later, their shop assistant, Bessie Pardy, also died aged only 14. But, she was working as a shop assistant when she was 14 years old.
Very different times.
Extremely, But that's the thing with the famine. It ended up affecting a lot of different people because there was a lot of diseases that came with an amount of people coming into the city.
So John, being a sweet shop owner, did he ever, sample his own supply?
Oh, John was dipping into the sugar big time. Yeah, it was absolutely to the detriment of his own health, because by 1863 he had lost all his teeth. Now, losing all your teeth wasn't, uncommon, but I'm sure that having all the sugar didn't help.
Yeah.
And you couldn't really just go to the dentist like you do today and get a filling. You imagine what the dentists were like in the 1860s. We know that later these travelling dentists would come to Limerick.
Travelling dentist. What a job.
They would have this whole thing. It was like a circus where the travelling dentist would come to the city. They would have a band come and be playing as they were extracting people's teeth. The band would be like really loud, trumpets going, so it would drown out the screams. And people would come and watch someone getting their teeth extracted. Anyway, so John wasn't going to visit the dentist. But
the dentist could have came to visit him, though, apparently.
Well, he was giving the dentist good trade by selling all these sweets when there wasn't so many toothbrushes around.
It's true.
So John, with having no teeth, he still needed a smile. And he went really flash with it. And he got himself a set of false teeth. And these false teeth were made of silver.
I'm imagining Jaws, the character from the James Bond films, with this full metal grill with that smile.
That's what John was. John Goggin, just inside in his sweet shop. You'd come in, you'd see your own reflection in his mouth when he was selling you something. The thing about these teeth, though, now they were made of silver. They were, highly prized.
Yeah.
So that year, his teeth got stolen.
Someone stole his silver teeth?
Yeah, they I don't know whether they whipped them out of his mouth or if he left them on the counter. But
Heist of the century.
What are you going to do in the sweet shop? Steal someone's teeth. Yet, so a woman named Mary Shaughnessy, who was 29 at the time, she pinched the teeth. She didn't keep a hold of them, though. She handed them off to her 12-year-old accomplice, Margaret Grady.
So someone stole his teeth and then made a child their partner in crime.
That's what they did. Yep.
Did they get caught at least?
Yeah, they were both caught. It made quite a scandal. Imagine what the headlines would be today. Dentures stolen in Limerick. Suspects bite off more than they can chew. So, Mary was a dab hand at stealing. This was her 25th conviction.
25th conviction. Mm-hmm. And she kept getting released?
And she kept getting released. And even this time she was released again. She spent 3 months in prison.
And that 25 convictions. She gets caught for stealing silver teeth and sent to only 3 months.
3 months. But that's poor Margaret, the 12-year-old, she was sent to 14 days in prison first. And then she was sent off to St. Joseph's Reformatory in Dublin, where she spent 5 years in a reformatory school.
5? So the kid really got the raw end of the deal, is what you're saying?
Absolutely. Never trust someone if they want you to steal some silver teeth.
Okay, so let's take a quick detour from John for a moment. What else of note did the family get up to?
We know more about the family from the court records and newspaper records. The Goggins seem to be in the newspapers and in the court records quite a bit. So we know in 1863, that same year that John had his teeth stolen, that his daughter Julia had taken a silk dress to get altered in a dressmaker. Anne Carmody, she lived down in Market Alley. So a little while passed after she dropped the dress in and she went back to pick it back up again. But somehow it disappeared, got mislaid.
Scandal after scandal with this family.
They're never not at it. So Julia decided to take Anne Carmody to court because the dress was gone. It was a silk dress, a silk dress in 1863. That was a tidy sum.
Yeah.
Anne probably got, a nice bit for it. So the court ended up ordering Anne to pay compensation or to face a month in prison. So she ended up paying compensation to Julia. And Julia needed maybe not that dress, but definitely
a dress.
A dress.
Yeah. So did Julia have a lot of those really fancy silk dresses?
Well, we don't know how many she had, but we know that she definitely needed them. Because a few months later, after her one silk dress was stolen, she got married. So she was a summer bride, got married in July 1863 to a Patrick Coffey, who is also a native of Limerick.
So 1863 would continue to be an interesting year for the Goggin family. And this is honestly my favorite part about the story, even better than silver teeth. Tell us about the monkey.
Okay. All right. So you've got a sweet shop. You've got some silver teeth. You've got a rake of children, all who have the same name. What else are you going to do but get a monkey? With everything else that happened in 1863, silver teeth, stolen dresses, it ended up in such a weird way. John Goggin died. But
I say, it was 2 centuries ago.
well, getting there. But he died, and the news report into his death was extremely peculiar. So the newspaper report said, some short time since, a friend presented Mr. Goggin with a monkey, which he determined to treat as a special favourite. Now, that was all well and good. You've got a monkey, you're going to treat it as a special favourite.
Well, yeah, if I had a monkey, that would be my favourite thing in the world too.
There was a problem, though.
Oh?
John had a pet dog.
Oh. So they didn't get on well, the monkey and the dog?
The monkey and the dog were not firm friends at all. And the dog didn't appreciate that John had taken the monkey as a favourite. He wasn't getting to go out on his walks so much anymore.
It's a tale as old as time. Man has dog, man gets monkey, dog be sad. It happens all the time.
All the time. We all know how this goes. So the newspapers continued about his death and said, 10 days ago, the animal entered Mr. Goggin's room, where a lapdog was lying, when a fight ensued, and in the act of separating them, Mr. Goggin received a bite from the monkey in the hand.
So a dog and monkey fight is what led to his death, is what we're saying?
Yeah, I'm not sure that people had that on the bingo card for the 1860s in Limerick, that a dog and a monkey were fighting above a sweet shop. We know that John received immediate treatment. Sodium hydroxide was applied to the wound, which was located on the joints of the last 2 fingers in his right hand. They applied that straight away to try and burn away the damaged flesh.
Oh, that does not sound pleasant. Burning flesh is never, a good thing.
The smell alone would just make anybody faint.
Like burning hair is bad enough, but
They applied this, it was medical treatment at the time. It was what it was.
They did the best they could.
They did the best they could. So the wound remained open but uninfected for another few days. So it was just a big hole in his hand that they had burnt, with singe marks around it. And the monkey was still hanging on there. And then John began to feel unwell. They decided to contact some of the doctors around Limerick as they couldn't figure out why he was still feeling unwell. But the doctors couldn't really do anything about it. And, he took a turn for the worse and he ended up passing away really quickly.
So do we now have any idea of what John was infected with?
It's probable that he died of hydrophobia, which was the official term for rabies.
Oh, rabies. It makes sense for the 1800s.
Yeah.
With a monkey in it.
With a monkey and a dog and everybody fighting, rabies was probably the thing. So the monkey, after he ended up killing the family dog. And
the monkey killed the family dog?
The monkey killed the family dog. He
two for one, so can the dog and Goggin?
He also killed the cat.
And the cat?
Yeah, the monkey was...
I don't think I like this monkey anymore.
No, he went all in. So they ended up, putting the monkey down as well when they realised that this monkey was the cause of all this trouble.
So what was the public's reaction to the incident at that time?
Goggin was quite well known and he was quite well liked. There was a public announcement in the Cork Examiner, an obituary of sorts. I'll quote it again. And it said, "The melancholy event has cast a universal gloom over the city. Mr. Goggin was esteemed as a kind friend, frank, affable, and courteous to numerous patrons of his extensive establishment. And his loss will be long regretted by a large circle of sorrowing friends."
Oh, that was sweet. That was a nice obituary.
That was a nice obituary.
That was nice, yeah.
Sometimes I look at these old obituaries and I try to read into them and see the words. So when they use the word frank, that meant that John Goggin did not suffer any fools. He would tell you exactly how it was.
God, so it's a valuable trait to have. So what date was his death recorded at?
So he died on the 21st of December, 1863. So just before Christmas.
So now if people wanted to visit him, where would they find him? What graveyard or churchyard would he be in?
He's buried in St. John's Church of Ireland churchyard. That's in John Square, the small little churchyard there. And interestingly, his age was recorded as 52 when he died. But this would have put him at 12. 12? When he got married.
Oh my.
So we think that maybe somebody...
So someone wrote down that just a slightly different number.
Some tiny, tiny little number. His wife, Catherine, ended up dying only 3 weeks later.
Wow.
In January of 1864. So it was a really tough...
Was the monkey involved in this one too?
The monkey was not involved in poor Catherine. I'm sure it was just her heart gave out after all this stress. But she was recorded as being 69 when she died. But we knew she was about 10 years older than John.
Was she buried with him?
Unfortunately, religion played a part here again.
Oh,
so
as
John
it always does.
John was buried in the Church of Ireland graveyard, but his wife Catherine was a Roman Catholic, so she wasn't allowed to be buried there. Instead, she was buried up in Mount St. Lawrence Cemetery. It was a predominantly Roman Catholic cemetery. It was officially supposed to be a mixed cemetery, but it ended up becoming predominantly Roman Catholic.
So what ended up happening to the shop, actually?
So Julia, the daughter who had her dress stolen, she had married Patrick Coffey. She'd married him in St. John's Cathedral, interestingly. It was a nice big cathedral for them to get married in. But again, in the Catholic cathedral, even though she had a Protestant father. But
I'm assuming Patrick Coffey was Catholic. So.
Patrick Coffey was Catholic.
Yeah.
And he became the executor of the will. And he also became the next of kin for John Goggin. So everything came down to him in the end, to the son-in-law.
So how much did he end up getting for the estate?
So in 1864, when the probate all went through for the estate, it was worth less than £300. Now, the thing is, £300 in 1863
is a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think it should have been worth more, though? It could have been worth like $350.
It could have been worth more, but we don't know about John's spending habits. Literally, he was buying silver teeth. And his daughter was getting silk dresses.
Yeah.
So they had a lot of outgoings. So £300, it wasn't a huge amount, but it wasn't a terrible amount.
Yeah, it'll get them by for
either.
a while. As long as she stops buying a bunch of silk dresses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We do know that the shop, though, it closed not long after. It didn't appear in trade directories
Yeah.
later on, and new business ended up moving into that premises as well. So when the Goggins and Catherine and John died, I'm sure it was really hard for Julia. Did she really want to stay in the house that saw such tragedy?
Yeah, that's fair. I probably wouldn't want to be honest, if I was in that position. I'd sell it straight away. So Julia got all of the estate. Did the other surviving children get anything from it?
We know that he had at least one other surviving child other than Julia, James Ulysses Goggin.
Ulysses is a great name.
It's a brilliant name.
It's such a good name.
And especially as he ended up traveling, so it makes
it's
even more
fitting,
sense.
Yeah.
So he ended up as a young man leaving Ireland, leaving Limerick and going over to North America.
Oh, yeah.
And
Where in North America?
He ended up traveling as far as San Francisco. We know he ended up in San Francisco when he died in 1888.
Yeah.
What happened in the in-between times is a bit of a blur.
Nobody
but
knows.
Going from Limerick to San Francisco, he was probably going for the gold rush. Maybe he wanted some gold teeth.
Oh, yeah, an upgrade. So he saw John's teeth and was like, I can do better than that. So this was a story with a lot of striking images. A sweet shop being guarded during the famine, silver teeth, and a monkey attack by a monkey that I don't like as much as I did at the beginning of the story.
This is just one of the many interesting stories hidden almost in plain sight in Limerick. So what we're going to do is in these podcasts is dive into and explore more stories like this. Now, they're not all going to have a monkey. They're not all going to have silver teeth, but they're going to have something.
Yeah.
Something's going to make you go, ooh. So thank you all for listening. You can find more about me at my website at Limerick's Life. And can they find out more about you, Peter?
Probably not.
Well then, if they can't find anything more out about you and they know where I am,
Yeah.
let's say goodbye for today.
Bye.
Find out more about this and other Limerick stories at limerickslife.com and check us out on our social media. You can also find Limerick's Life on buymeacoffee.com. Mine's a decaf.
And mine's a latte.